No, Erev Tov, and we want to wish first of all to everyone a Gmar Chasima Teva, Lashana Teva, Mesuka. Everyone should be sealed for a good inscription of a good and sweet year. And we find ourselves in the midst of the 10 days of Tshuva, Aser Simei Tshuva. The Ariya Kodesh, Rabbi Yitzchak Luria, our local Kabbalist, he teaches the following, that we always find that we don't see exactly the 10 days of Tshuva, because the first 2 days of Rosh Hashanah are counted as the first 2 days of Tshuva, and the last day, which is Yom Kippur, is also counted as a day, as one of the 10 days of Tshuva. So what we have actually is 7 days always between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. These 7 days always contain within them every single day of the week, right, including a Shabbos. And the Ari comes and tells us that every single day of the 7 days of the Aser Simei Tshuva between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur represents this day of the week throughout the entire past year. And whatever we might have missed out, whatever we need to correct that was done on this particular day of the year in the past 365 days, we have the merit and we have our ability to correct. So here tonight we're entering Tuesday, Huchpal Be'Kitev. It is doubled over with goodness, and definitely whatever we need to add, we didn't take up the opportunity to do. We'll correct on this day for all the Tuesdays of the year, and whatever needs to be rectified, we'll rectify for all the Tuesdays of the year. But the Tuesday on its own merit, is a day of Huchpal Boy Kitev. It's not only that Hashem saw that it was a good day, but Hashem doubled the portion of goodness on this day. And therefore we see, by Hashgacha Protis as well, that this year, in the calendar, the Yourtzite, the day of the passing of Rebbetzin Chana, the mother Eim HaMalchus, the mother of royalty, the mother of the Rebbe Shlita Melech Ha'Moshiach, her Yourtzite is tonight, Vav Tishrei, the 6th of Tishrei. It's not always it doesn't always every year fall on a Tuesday. Tonight it falls on a Tuesday. So we see that there is an additional portion, a double portion of goodness on this day. And on a revealed basis, we see that the goodness is revealed through the fact that it's also Rebbetzin Chana's Yourtzite. We just want to mention maybe one or two stories in order to be able to understand what we're talking about. When we're talking about Rebbetzin Chana was a very, very modest woman, and she was the wife of the Rabbi Levi Yitzchak, the Goyen HaMekubal HaChosid, the Rebbe's father of Levi Yitzchak Schneerson, and through different happenings and these are happenings that she wrote in her own diary, we see how she was totally given over to her husband, to Rav Levi Yitzchak. The famous story of when Rav Levi Yitzchak was taken to the city of exile, to Chile, Alma-Ata. So she didn't think twice, and she immediately got on a train, and she traveled to be together with her husband, even though the living conditions were unbearable. Just to give you everyone an idea, we're talking about a place that the insects were mosquitoes. There were so many mosquitoes. And they were so large that they didn't have screens on the windows. But in order to go and to get the mosquitoes out of the room, out of the house, they had to go and they had to make a fire inside the house, obviously in a container that was able to contain fire. in order to go into manufacture smoke. And that's how they smoked the rooms, the apartments, so that the mosquitoes wouldn't enter. But obviously, a person that is sitting in a room and it's all smoked up, this is not living conditions. It's very, very challenging, to say the least. The fact that Rav Levi Yitzchak had the need, not just because it's a spiritual goal in his life, but this gave him health. It gave him gesund to sit down and to write his Chidushei Torah, to sit down and to write his comments and his great Torah ideas, Chidushim, novelties. Specifically, as we know, one of the great compilations is the writings of Rav Levi Yitzchak on the Zohar HaKodesh, on the Holy Zohar, of which afterwards the Rebbe went and gathered it together and had it printed. And this is the way that we have the printed material. Initially, the printed material would not have been written down in handwriting if it was not for Rebbetzin Chana, because Rebbetzin Chana went out and she would go and she would dig up different roots that she knew that from these roots she could boil the roots in water, and she would be able to manufacture ink so that her husband will be able to go and to write his Chidushei Torah. And he wrote them on dry leaves, very thick dry leaves that were able to maintain their stature. And this is how we have the Chidushei Torah written. Afterwards, it was even greater a sakona. It was even greater a danger for Rebbetzin Chana to go and to take these writings and to be able to smuggle them out. They had to be smuggled out. No one was allowed to go and to take manuscripts and writings. She literally smuggled them out, and she wouldn't give up on these writings until she actually had the zchus of bringing them through Europe to the United States. This is the kind of woman we're talking about, that had Mesirus Nefesh. She literally put her own life on the line. We're not only talking about convenience, her own life for her husband, for the Rav Levi Yitzchak Schneerson, the Rebbe's father. If we go back in time, we mentioned earlier that the Rebbetzin gave birth to a very special child. They had 3 sons, but the oldest son, the Rebbe, was a very special child. He was amazing, outstanding child. All he had the desire to do when he was a young boy of 6 was to sit and to study, to have the books open and to sit and to study. And we're not talking about sitting and studying, lahavdil, things that interest young boys today. I don't know, science, about outer space, about nature. No, he sat and studied day and night and day. He studied Torah. And we're not even talking about the revealed fields of the Torah. We're talking about the esoteric fields of the Torah as well. Rebbetzin Chana was concerned that children of this age, obviously she was very happy that her son was sitting and learning Torah, that the Rebbe was sitting and learning Torah, but she was concerned that children of this age, they also have to engage in playful activities. They have to move their limbs, not just to sit there in one place and just learn. When a person is older, that's another thing. But young children, she was very worried. So she went and she called over a child who was in the Rebbe's age bracket. In the Rebbe's class in Cheder, and she told him privately, listen, she asked the young lad, would you like a candy? and that was something that was Yekar HaMetzius. It was something very, very dear. It was very difficult to go by. Candy, chocolate, these are things that children love, but it wasn't common like you have today. So the kid's eyes lit up, and he said, "Oh, yes, definitely." So Rebbetzin Chana said, "Listen, you know my Mendele." So he said, "Sure, my friend." He says, "Listen, I want very much that my Mendele will play ball, but he sits and learns all day. So I will give you a candy if you go and invite my Mendele to go and to play ball with you outside." And the child said, it's a deal. And immediately afterwards, he went to the Rebbe, the as a child, yes, we're talking about the Rebbe. And he looks at the Rebbe, and the Rebbe, 6-year-old boy, he's sitting and he's studying. So the child says, "Listen, hey, I have an idea. Why don't you come with me? We'll go outside. We'll play some ball." So the Rebbe looks at him and he says, "Nah, I don't think so. But thank you for the invitation." So this boy, he's desperate. He really wants his candy. So he says, "Listen, come on. You can get back to your learning later on. I mean, how many times do you actually go out to play? Come on. I have no one to play with. Do a mitzvah. Play with me, ball. Avas Yisrael." So the Rebbe looks at him. He says, "No, I have to. I think I'll pass. But thank you again." And the Rebbe was unbelievably. The Rebbe had such manners, even as a child. The Rebbe was such a mensch, even to a child. A young boy. Instead of another person, if it was another person, the person is sitting and studying Torah, he say, just like maybe leave me alone. Don't you see I'm learning? Don't you see I'm studying? No, the Rebbe delicately was handling his friend from Cheder. So then all of a sudden, this boy sees that he's up against a stone wall, and he starts crying. And at this, the Rebbe turns around and looks at him. He says, "I don't understand. Because I don't want to play ball with you, that brings you to tears?" So he says, "Yes." He says, "How so?" And so the boy spilled the beans. He said, "Listen, your mother offered me a candy if I would take you outside to play with you ball. But you're not coming out to play ball with me. So I'm gonna miss my candy." Upon this, the Rebbe said, "No problem." The Rebbe shut his books, and the Rebbe went out, and the Rebbe played ball for a short amount of time with his friend, all in order for what? So that his friend will be able to have that which he pursued. He will be able to receive his candy from his mother. He didn't go into the details of how my mother is mixing into my private life. What does it mean that I should go out to play ball? I'm in the middle of studying Torah. The Rebbe would never even bring this up in his own in his awareness to say such words. And when another Jew was in need, and it was a matter of Avos Yisrael, that he sees that another Jew is crying because he's continuing to learn and not playing ball. This is what changed, and this is how the Rebbetzin afterwards. These stories are recorded. The Rebbetzin tells us of how special what a special son she had. Another short story. In those days, everyone sent their child. It was difficult, as is challenging, but people sent their children to cheder in order for the melamed, for the teacher to go on to teach them, to educate them. But when it came to the Rebbe, so the parents, Rav Levik and Rebbetzin Chana, saw that it's already beyond the melamed, beyond the teacher, to teach their son, and therefore the Rebbe would sit and learn at home on his own. And amongst the things that the Rebbe would do, there were very many different things. He also had, as we'll see now, he had different correspondence. And here we're talking about the Rebbe also at the very young age, I believe at the age of 11. It's a famous story. There was the Rogatchover, the great Gaon of Radin, the great Gaon Rogatchover. Radin, I think Radin, and the story, the way it goes is that in all the Rogatchover's correspondence, he wouldn't sit down to write letters. He would only write postcards. That's the way it worked by him. And all the different correspondence, people would receive answers in postcards. And one of the major manners that he would convey replies is in a manner of not writing and expounding on the topic at hand, replying directly to the question, but going and giving Mare Mekemis, different footnotes in different books that were already printed and written by Gdei Yisrael from the previous generations, referring the person that asked the question to these different sources, in order for them to be able to go and to have the clarification to their questions. Once Rav Levik, the Rebbe's father, was traveling, and then he on the way he decided to stop in by the Gaon, the Rogatchover, and when he came in, the Rogatchover, he introduced himself to the Rogatchover, and the Rogatchover said, what? You're from Yekaterinoslav. Today it's Dnieper Petrovsk. You're from Yekaterinoslav. You're the Rav of Yekaterinoslav. So maybe it came to your notice. There's a vast genius in your in the congregation in the area of Yekaterinoslav, and his name is Mendel Schneerson, Menachem Mendel Schneerson. Maybe you know him. And the Rav Levik said, "What?" He says, "Yes, here. I'll show you. I have letters. I have letters from him." And he shows him, and Rav Levik immediately he was able to identify the handwriting of his son, and he looks at the Rogatchover, and he says, "Listen, I appreciate the fact that you call him a vast genius, but the person that you're talking about here is a 11-year-old, I think either 9 or 11-year-old a year old boy. And how do I know? Because he just happens to be one of my sons." So the Rogatchover said, "What? This is your son? And he's at this and this age? 9, 11? Wow. Listen, I have a proposition for you." And Rav Levik asks, "What?" So he says, "I propose that you send your son over to me here, and he'll be able to learn by me." Rav Levik heard the Rogatchover, and with all due respect, he answered the Rogatchover, "Listen, you know something? The way it seems, he's doing pretty good where he is at the moment. If you're receiving these letters and you're so impressed and you're so aroused with his genius and so on, it would seem to be that he's doing pretty good where he is at the moment. So that was the end of that story, and the Rebbe stayed by his parents in Yekaterinoslav. And later years, it's famous stories how the Rebbe would show unbelievable kibud av va'em, honoring his parents, his mother, his father. When we're talking about the Rebbe, who as he already became Rebbe, the Rebbe had a kvius. He had a set time every day. I believe during the week, it was like 20 minutes from 7 o'clock till 7:20. Don't catch me on my word. That's what I remember from the top of my mind. And every time that he would come, when the Rebbe would come, the Rebbetzin Chana, she lived not far away. She lived on President Street. People, if it's familiar to people, the Rebbetzin Chana lived in the apartment building 1418. That is conjacent to 1414, where it's also the dormitories of the yeshiva, Tomchet Tmimim, the central Tomchet Tmimim yeshiva. Downstairs in 1414 is the big dining room for the yeshiva students. But she lived next door. Literally, it's one building, but it's another entrance. 1418. I don't want to take any credit, but when I was a bacher in studying by the Rebbe in 770, so I had the merit of having a room in this same apartment house in 1418. Anyway, not that it has anything to do with anything, but it gives me a feeling, a very warm feeling when I think that this is the place where the Rebbe's, not only that the Rebbe's mother used to live, but as we're going to hear now, the Rebbe came and the Rebbe visited his mother every day. The Rebbe was in this building. The Rebbe came inside. To the extent that the Rebbe's kibud av va'em, it was so great. The Rebbe was careful to have a key to his mother's apartment. Why? Because when he came to visit, he didn't want to bother her to have to get up from being seated. He didn't want her to get up in order to go into the door, to open the door. And sometimes the Rebbetzin would, if it was a nice day, the Rebbetzin would go out and sit outside at the entrance. And when the Rebbe would come, so it was an unbelievable sight. The Rebbe would sit down next to his mother, and they would enjoy the fresh air. They would enjoy being outside and in nature. There's trees, there's bushes, there's people. It's something. It's something different. And people that would go by, it would be unbelievable. This is the same Rebbe that matters of life and the opposite of life, matters on international basis. We're in the Rebbe's hands, and the Rebbe would take out from all this time. And we're not even talking about the fact that the Rebbe designates the majority of his time to try to sit down and to study Torah. Here the Rebbe comes and teaches us, and he would teach all the people surrounding him in his environment how important it is to have the mitzvah of kibud av va'em. There's a funny detail that when the Rebbe would come to visit by Rebbetzin Chana, so the neighbors from upstairs, they would be by the window because they knew, give or take the hour that the Rebbe would be arriving. And when they saw the Rebbe arriving, so there were children that would run down in order to go and to help, to open the heavy doors. At the entrance there are like two big metal framed heavy doors with glass. I remember myself, and they're pretty heavy doors, but why would they do it? In order to go and to open the doors for the Rebbe, so that the Rebbe wouldn't have to bother with the doors. It would be the same also in 770. People would run in order to go and to open the door for the Rebbe. The Rebbe always, for whoever opened the door, the Rebbe always made a point to go and to thank the person, to say adank, thank you in Yiddish, to the person that opened the doors. So here also, people would go and they would make it a point to open the doors in honor of the Rebbe. Until Rebbetzin Chana, the Rebbe's mother, she went to the neighbors and she explained to them that with all her understanding of the fact that they want to honor the Rebbe, she asked them not to open the doors anymore. And how did she justify it? She said that her son, the Rebbe, barely gets any exercise. Is everyone listening? Her son, the Rebbe, barely gets any exercise. So the only small things that he gets is, for example, when he comes to the apartment house, and he comes and he opens up the heavy doors. So this is some exercise that he gets on a daily basis. And if people come and they open up the doors, so he'll be losing out on this small amount of exercise that he could have had. So the Rebbetzin Chana spoke to the neighbors not to open the doors for the Rebbe. One more detail: the Rebbetzin Chana, unlike Rebbetzin Chaya Mushkel, later on the Rebbe's wife, Rebbetzin Chana had a permanent place that she sat in 770 in the women's section, and this was her place for davening. This was her place also for brengens. This is a place where she sat when the Rebbe would have his public addressals to the Chassidim, to the public. So she had her special place, and she wouldn't miss a farbrengen. During the years that Rebbetzin Chana was there, she was a chassid of her son, literally a staunch follower of the Rebbe. And so it's told that after davening, so Rebbetzin Chana would go in order to wish the Rebbe a good Shabbos, and then the Rebbe would walk his mother out, if I'm quoting correctly, holding her by the elbow from underneath, work his mother out to the opening of 770, the main opening, and then the Rebbe would stand at the opening. The Rebbe would stand at the opening until his mother was already out of sight. In other words, she would walk out from 770, walk around around the corner of Kingston Avenue, back to President Street, to her apartment. The Rebbe stood there without moving. And this is time. Every second of the Rebbe is unbelievably prized as Yokor should be Yokor, the dearest of dear. The Rebbe stood there and Rebbetzin Chana, we're talking about after davening, all the streets are filled with people. And Rebbetzin Chana would walk through the people. It took time to walk through the people, an elderly woman. The Rebbe stood there until the Rebbetzin was clear from eyesight, and only after that the Rebbe allowed himself to close the door and to go back into 770. So when we're talking about a woman who not only was her life totally designated to going and to bringing about the promotion of Torah study, the promotion of mitzvahs. By the way, the place in Ukraine where they live, where Rav Leivik Alav Shalom was the rabbi in Yekaterinoslav, it was known as a college town. even though it wasn't a town, it was a humongous, it was a very large city. But it was known because it had a high academy of study. It was known as a college town, and the Rebbetzin took upon herself the shlichus. She was a shliach to go and to deal with the students, to bring the students home for meals. We're talking about shlichus material, and if we want to know where the Rebbe is coming from, we're not only talking about the spiritual side of the neshama. We're talking about the material father and mother, and specifically tonight, the Yourtzite of Rebbetzin Chana, the Rebbe's mother, that brought him up and raised him and educated him in this mode of being going and designating our time and our efforts and our lives for our fellow Jew, to promote Torah and mitzvahs. And this Baruch Hashem, we have the merit of seeing by the Rebbe Shlita Melech Ha'Moshiach, and the Rebbe comes and teaches this to each and every individual, each and every one of us. And it should be Hashem's will that through all the efforts and through all the work, and specifically in the Aseres Yemei Tshuva, the 10 days of Tshuva, that we're doing this work in learning Torah and in observing mitzvahs, in going and making sure that every single Jew should have their provisions for the holidays, for the Yomim Tovim. This alone should be the enough of the impetus to bring about the revelation of the Rebbe Shlita Melech Ha'Moshiach. We entered a very special year that every single one of the Yomim Tovim from Rosh Hashanah, we go and immediately entered Shabbos. Sukkot, in Eretz Yisrael, we're going to have an intermediate day, but in Chutz La'aretz, in the diaspora, so where 2 days are celebrated. So again, immediately from the first days of Sukkot, we enter Shabbos, and the last days of Sukkot, Shmini Atzeres, Simchas Torah, again we enter Shabbos. This gives us a very special year that we have experienced the commencement of, a year of peace and tranquility, a year that kol melachtecha asuya, that all our chores, everything that has to do with the chores of the Jew, have been completed. We're talking about the mundane, the material, and therefore, what's left? What's left is for us to sit down, to study Torah, to do mitzvahs, to have fabrengens, to sit down together with other Yidden, and to tell concepts of Torah, tell stories. And this should bring us immediately now to the big fabrengen with the Rebbe Shlita Melech Ha'Moshiach in the third and the eternal Beis Hamikdash, in the Geula Shlema V'Amitis, the true and the complete redemption, and should be Teichef Umiyad, Mamish, immediately in actuality now. Yechi Adoneinu, Moreinu, V'Rabbeinu, HaMelech HaMoshiach, L'Olam V'Ed. One last thing, people have been asking about all that is going on here in the Holy Land in Eretz Yisrael. The first and foremost instruction that the Rebbe gives is that a person should not be afraid, and the person should not cause fear by others. And this is something that is due to the fact, the Rebbe says, that the land of Israel, Eretz Yisrael, is the safest place upon earth, in the universe. It is the place where the Rebbe quotes. We read it recently. Eretz asher einei Hashem elikecha ba. It is a land that the eyes of Hashem are upon. Mireshis Hashana ad Achris Shana, from the beginning of the year to the culmination of the year, and this is the way it's renewed every single year. And not only this, the Rebbe quotes, "Hinei le'yonum v'le'ishon shem Yisrael." Behold, the guard of Israel will not sleep and will not slumber. Yemam hashemesh Yakeka v'yareach balayla, and this is during the times of daylight, where the sun gleams, and also by night when the moon shines. This is what the Rebbe is telling us. This is what the Rebbe is talking about, and therefore, just one small story, We know that there was a barrage of rockets. It's like a regular thing, a daily thing. But the other day, it was a barrage of rockets on Haifa, and without exaggerating, people probably saw it. It was already put on the social media. I have family shluchim, two shluchim, three shluchim in Haifa. They tell us, you want to see miracles? Hashem shows us miracles. There was a rocket that was shot. The rocket is going all the way from Lebanon. It's going all the way to Haifa. It falls in Haifa, in a very densely populated area. There are many apartment buildings all around. But where does the rocket fall? It falls in a kikar in Hebrew. It's like a roundabout, a circle. There's all the apartment buildings are built densely all around this kikar, around this roundabout, this circle. And this in the open space where there were no people. People weren't walking around. There was a siren. The missile came and it bored, many meters into the ground, blew up. Who could go and fathom that anyone would be able to have it's a guided missile, that a guided missile will be guided, and it would be guided not to hit any of the apartment buildings. They're very tall, filled with people. Where's the missile hitting? In the middle, where it is totally vacant of anyone. No one. Rahman al-Islam today, there was a rocket that was shot from the south. They again regained their chutzpah. This is the audacity of the animals. The Hamas Yimach Shemam. They shot from Khan Yunis. They shot a very big and developed missile, a rocket, and it was, I don't know exactly where it was meant to be heading, but it fell in Kfar Chabad. No, excuse me. I have to make a tikkun. I have to correct myself. It was shot down. It was shot down in the air over Kfar Chabad. But the pieces that fell fell on Kfar Chabad, and there were certain places that it fell, certain homes that were damaged. There was a woman, just another miracle, unbelievable. A woman, I know the family. She came home after she went for shopping. She was shopping for fruits and vegetables. She came home with her car. She parked her car. She took the fruits and vegetables, and she heard the siren. So she skedaddled into her home, even though they don't have a security room. But in a closed space, it's better than being outside. The moment that she entered her home and she lied down on the ground, all of a sudden we're talking about a piece of metal from the rocket, from the missile that was shot down. It was something like the length of 9 meters. That's a pretty big piece of metal. 9 meters long piece of metal falling out from the sky. It hit right on her car. That was parked literally minutes before, and she got into her home. We're talking miracles here. Hashem, we're asking you, please. We appreciate all the miracles that you're showing us. By the way, if anyone wants to know, I'm not a news broadcaster. Everyone knows that. But it's important to go into broadcast the miracles that Hashem is doing for us. So if anyone wants to know, if anyone didn't know, so our soldiers have entered Lebanon. That's something that's common news. That's already a few days ago. But for anyone that wants to know, our soldiers have entered Beirut. We're not talking about southern Lebanon here on the Gvul, on the border. They've already arrived in Beirut, and they're doing everything that they need to do, Bezrat Hashem, to make Eretz Yisrael the safest place in the world on a revealed basis. No more rockets, no more missiles. To go into dismantle the entire animalistic Hezbollah, the terrorists that are the proxies of the Iranians. The Iranians are shivering. They're trying to show that they're trying to show that they have an atom bomb. That's what they broadcast. Why? Because they're afraid that Israel is about to attack them. They have their planes. They're not allowing their planes to go, and all their aerial transportation is shut down. Everyone is at odds. We're not talking about Israel. We're talking about those that are trying to go and to attack, to be an enemy to Am Yisrael. And we're coming and we're showing them that in the schus of Hashem, the emunah and the bitachon in God, that we are Am Yisrael Chai. And it doesn't make a difference where they may be. We've already attacked in Iraq the other day, today, and in Teiman. By the way, the Haftorah, the davening of Rosh Hashanah, speaks about how we go and we attack in Teiman. If anyone looked into liturgy that we said this past Rosh Hashanah, 2 days, it speaks about the fact that Hashem is going to go and to attack Teiman, Yemen, and this is the bottom line. Mashiach is here. We have to reveal the Rebbe Shlita Melech Ha'Moshiach, and the bottom line is it's only the moment that just passed is the moment that Mashiach was meant to come. This is what the Rebbe tells us. And it should be Techif Umiyad, this moment, that we merit the Izgolos of the Rebbe Shlita Melech HaMoshiach. Yechi Adoneinu Moreinu V'Rabbeinu HaMelech HaMoshiach Le'elam V'ed. And we should not be embarrassed to go out and dance in the streets in light of, in the merit of all the great wonders and miracles that Hashem, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, is doing for us. Mashiach now. Kol Tov.